Right, so what we do, we get the plugs out, we use them little magnet, pull them out with, and as we go, we'll have a look at the colour of them. See what we got. Look alright. We'll keep them in order, so if we want to have a better look at them later, we can. But it just gives us an idea of what's going on. A little bit wet, that one. Perhaps it's burning a bit of oil. This does burn a bit of oil, this one. That's telling, isn't it? Not something we need to worry about at the minute. Not much we can do about it at the moment, but we will eventually be doing an engine rebuild on this one, because it is a keeper. They love this car. And it's a very nice original car. So yeah, eventually that'll get done. And then we'll be, this will be one of the things we're attending to, but it's not a big drama. They can put up with it for now. They only use it once a year for European trips, so although it does a few thousand miles each time, it's and they have other cars. So, but yeah, I think we'll be moving towards doing a rebuild on this eventually. I expect we've got a bit of valve stem oil seal problem, possibly guides. Valve guides, they do suffer on these. I'd imagine it's more that sort of thing, and we've got a lot of oil leaks on the engine, which obviously will come into get sorted out when we're doing the whole thing. So yeah, it probably needs to freshen up. There's nothing really wrong with the engine. It's it's not that worn, I don't think. So a lot easier with the bonnet off, but that ain't gonna happen today because I can't do the bonnet on my own. Okay. So that was the easy bit. Now we've got to get round here and get these ones out. You've got these nice boots on it, factory boots for keeping the moisture out and all the dirt out of the spark plug tubes, as it were. All good. Just tuck them down there. Now we've got to find a suitable extension. There we are, that one will do it. Let's put this little one onto it there, and that should be just about what we want. Right. So I haven't pushed the extension fully home. I haven't clipped it over the little ball bearing, so it hasn't clipped in there hard, strong. Because that's the trouble, is you have too long an extension, it hits the bulkhead before you can get it out. So that's done that, that's got that loose. So then you take that out, you see what I mean, anything longer it hits the bulkhead. So that's done. Now the same magnet I was using before, on the end of the extendable aerial type thing, I'm just wound that onto my finger, onto the threads, and I'm just popping in there like a little magnetic thimble, and pick it out like that, you see? There you go. There we go. I'll put them in order again, so I can have a look at them. Right, so here's our plugs. It's quite sooty and a bit of oil burnt, isn't it? They're all fairly uniform, which is what I'm looking for, really. There's no real outliers here. I'm not too worried about it. It's a bit more oily than the others, but it might be that some of that's just weep down there. Look, that's probably more likely where it's gone down the spark plug tube, and then gone onto it as I've taken it out. I don't think that's where it's been burning it. Right, so that's that. That's our little nuts we were using for undoing those studs, carb tops, studs and nuts from the carb tops, alternator, water pump, washer and nut. That's our lower mount for the aircon. You can see where the washers all go. I sort of laid it all out as it come apart. And then we've got our top mount, and that's how it was. So these are on the very top of the studs, and this lot goes underneath. And then it has these spacers accordingly. And then here we are, we've got these with the sort of spring washers, wavy washers effectively. See, slightly wavy. There you go. That's it. So that gives me an idea of where it all goes back. And having filmed it, I've also got another reference, but that's just so you see how it sort of lays out. So that's your timing covers, and here, the MFA, isn't it? I was saying about on these bolts. So we're going to have a look at my stock of bolts, and I'll show you what I was on about. So here's some of my stock of bolts. So it's the later stuff that has FA on it. It's the early stuff has Fiat written on it. So there we have it on, that's a wheel bolt. Fiat, one with Fiat written on it earlier, it would be more 60s through to the early 70s. The FA is late 70s. Now, obviously this 308 we're working on is a 78. On the Fiat stuff, it was all the Fiat Dino 2 litre and 2.4 would have Fiat bolts. 2 litres had them in this silver cad plating. And when we went over to the 2.4, it was generally in the sort of more yellowy cad plating. Hence why I've got bits of both here. And then of course once you went over to Fiat 130, which is the Fiat 130 range, was what replaced the Dinos effectively as their flagship, Fiat's flagship. That's when they had these FA bolts, and then thereafter you'd find them on other stuff, you know. Obviously Ferrari were using Fiat bolts. Well, they would do. You would, wouldn't you, I guess. So yeah, that's it. Can you see the top of the piston there? Poking up with number 1 here. So there we are on number 1. Now I've used a screwdriver down the bore, and raise that up. Turning the crank over, raise that up. So we got that at its highest point. And that wants to line up with these time marks here. So we've got a little mark there and a pointer. So I think that's a good place. So that's TDC number 1. Another way of checking this is to see if we've got the valves closed, which means we've got the piston at the top of its travel and the valves are fully closed. So we can put a tube down here. See, tube down there, push it right down till it goes home. And blow down it. And if we can feel some resistance, we know it's sealing. Then try it on this one because we know this is open. We know this has probably got valve overlap because the piston's in a funny position. It's got no resistance on it. Do the same on this one. Hear it whistling through the carburetor. So we know we've got no resistance. Go along to this one. We've got no resistance on it. So go back to this first one. And once we get that seated, we want that tube to sort of seat down on the bottom. And a good puff down it. Yeah, you see. So we know the valves are closed and we've got it at TDC, so that's a good place to go. So I've put some marks on the end of the cams so we can see what we're doing. I put some marks down on the crankshaft pulley. And I've also marked our intermediately pulley. So now we do have, if I can get everything to stand still for a minute. So we do have a sort of cutout in the casing here. Little cutout there, so that's a good place. So that's marking it, line up that tooth there, and then I've pulled that all the way forwards, that line to the end of the tooth there, marked it there. So we're all good. Let's say down on the crank here, put the marks on there just to double check. I'll then put this tool on it, which locks the cams in place. This is a sort of universal tool, use it on all sorts of stuff. But I thought I'd use that just to keep them in place, because if they're in a funny position, they'll try and turn. When you take the belt off, they'll try and the lobes on the cam will try and sort of, or rather the valve springs and the followers will be pushing on the cam in a funny position, try and spin it round. Now I've seen there is a nice tool that you can get which locks the cams out, which I'll do an illustration of that. I haven't got one. I don't know if it's something you can buy. I could definitely make one, but I'm not bothering to make one for this one job. And I don't do enough of these to worry about making one of those. This thing will suffice. Okay, let's get the belt off and see what we got. Right, it'd be worth checking the tension that we got on it already. So seeing how tight it is before we start, it gives us an idea of what we're going to bring it back to. Now these are sprung loaded, so it should self-tension to a degree, but they normally need a bit of helping hand. But yeah, if we see what we've got, and if it's been running well on that and not making horrible noises, you know, sort of screeching, not screeching is the wrong word, but sort of you get these sort of screamy noises out of them if they're over tight. Feels about right, you know, that feels pretty good there. Yeah, it feels all right, so we can go back to about that. And again, we can feel this other one. Now I'm doing one at a time. I'm going to treat this as 2 4-cylinders rather than as a V8, and do one belt at a time and double check it, turn it over and everything else. And that way I think it'll be an easier way of approaching the job. So we're going to slacken the bearing off, and then we're going to use this screwdriver like that to force that tensioner back, and then we'll lock it back up again so it holds it out of the way. There we are, there's our belt off. We're replacing these bearings, but you know, we just check them. So we release this, let that slip back again, and we're going to take that bearing off. So let's undo this. So we need a spanner on it just for the bit because we're on the nylock nut. So until we get onto the off the nylock bit, it will be a bit tighter. There you go, that's off of there. There's our new one. That's what we got. So let's have a look and compare it to the one we're replacing. So we can check it for width, check it that way for circumference. It's tiny bit bigger, but I don't think it's going to make much difference. So that wants to go on there like that, but what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of copper grease on here so that it won't, you know, hopefully stick on there. Yeah, so a bit of copper grease on there. The idea is just so that it doesn't bind up and you know, it won't get corroded up and stick on there in the future. That should slide on fairly well. Should be, just needed a bit to get it started, didn't it? There we go, let's nip that up and that'll hold it up right. Now the belt. Right, there you go. That's on there. So if we slacken this off, it should take this tension up. We've got that tight enough there. So we haven't got slack on here because obviously we don't want slack on this bit. We want the slack here where the attentioner is. So I'm just going to put that in there so it doesn't fly out as we jump everything about as it undoes. There we go. So that's tensioned it up. I'll give it a bit of a helping hand. There you go. Feels all right. We've got our marks there, haven't we? Should have that mark on the crankshaft pulley. It's not too bad for tension. I might wind it up just a touch more. I don't want to just push it across a bit more. And then, what's our marks like on the top there? They're all right, aren't they? Yeah, so we're all good. So with the front done, we've now moved on to the back. So I've done the same, locked this off. See, I'll put marks here, purely because I can't see over the top very easily. But I've used that bit of casing as a sort of datum. And then the lower is marked the same as the other side. So that's all, you know, did the same, if you see what I mean. You see how it lines up with that tooth? So it's the same as the front, really, same job. Right, so this one's not going to move as easy. The bearing is partially seized on there. You can see it's very rusty looking round here. So you can see it's trying to take the whole, you see, look, it ain't going to slip off like that. It's trying to take the whole thing off. So what I'm going to do is take the whole adjuster off, these 3 bolts, get it on the bench and see what we got. So this is sprung loaded, isn't it, here? So that's what forces your adjuster back when you release that. So by taking that nut, undoing that, that releases this here, doesn't it? That clamping pressure between there and there. So that allows that to spring back on its spring. But what we've got to do is take that off of this piece, which is part of that. So it's not about this bolt, is it, going through there? You see that will pop out through there? We can take that out, but that will make the spring pop out. But that's all right, we can do that. Let's strip it down properly, see what we got. So we can take that out of there. And we can clean everything up in a minute. So that's our spring in our plunger. It's a locator. But what we got to do is get this off of there. And that's corroded onto there, so we'll have a see. We'll see what we can do with that. I might have to use a little drift on that carefully. Put that in the vise, put a drift in there and just try and knock that through. Yeah, that wasn't too bad actually, it wasn't stuck too bad. So we just clean that up a bit, put the new one on, we'll assemble it all, bit of grease, it'll be alright. Now here's something interesting. Obviously there's been a problem here. See that, that's a grinder mark, so someone's been in here and they've cut the old bearing off. So they obviously had a problem with it being seized on there and couldn't get it off. So it's not going to affect here, it's not going to cause any bother for what we're doing. So I won't worry about it, but I'll put a bit of grease on here like I did with the other one and assemble it all. Yeah, it'd be fine. But yeah, it's obviously that someone had a big problem with that. But I'm not too worried about it. There's nothing there that's going to cause us any bother. This will seat nicely on here. It's not going to be any trouble at all, and it's been like that for years probably, hasn't it? So it makes you wonder who that was and how long ago. But 1978, this car. So it's had a few years in between then and now for this to have been an issue. So yeah, someone had trouble, but we're all right. We'll reuse it. There you go. That's all nice on there, isn't it? We'll do the same in here. Have a bit on this thing. bit on here. We don't really need it, but it'll save it binding up on something, won't it? So that pimple's got to go in there like that. I'm going to force this down into place, something like that. So if I use the edge of the bench to push it down, hold that in place and pop that in. There you go, and then that lines up there. That's all sorted now. And that's what locks it on there when you do that up or undo it. So there we are, that'll be all right, won't it? So get this tensioner back on now, can't we? There you go. I'll use a socket on the others. Now this one's going to be awkward because it was tight coming off. So let's get the belt where we want it. You want to sort of thread it under here, get it on your lower pulley. That's that. And then what are we looking for? Now we want to go up to that one. Now we don't really want any slack there, do we? That gets us where we want to be there. And across there without any slack. And then we're alright. Now we've got to try and flick it onto here. Now this is where it's going to be tight. Now it is tight. It's really tight to start. I think I need something to help with that. Something to push on. Now I'm not going to use a screwdriver. Use one of these nylon things. You remember we were using these when we were fitting the windscreen and so on. It ain't going to be a problem, but a screwdriver obviously could put a nick in it. You know, it's not what we want, is it? Let's try this. We just got to get the corner started and then it'll push over. It's being obstinate, isn't it? That's on. There you go. It's quite nice. These have got these slightly, not too sharp edges, so it does push on all right. So yeah, we're on. So we're slacking this off. It should adjust out as the spring comes out. See, it's growing out. See, it's coming out. There you go. Yeah, they're quite good. They sort of adjust it up nicely anyway, but so I like to give them a little bit of a hand. But until we've turned it over, we won't know exactly what we're after. It will, you know, settle in then, won't it? And we'll decide what we got. Feels all right. Good. So our marks are all good. And they should be, because we've got this on there holding it in place. See, that looks good. We come down here. That all looks good in line, doesn't it? Down inside the crank here, if we can. See our lines there? Yeah. Difficult to focus itself, isn't it? Right, we'll take the camera shaft locking tool off and we'll have a quick look at what it does and how it does. So you've got the two, obviously these pieces opposing each other, then they line up here and bite into the teeth effectively on top and bottom. So what I do is take the cross piece off. So this one is what holds the two apart, and you know, effectively holds them together. You know, holds them in their place, as it were. So take this off, and then we'll have a look and see what we got. So one on there, and this is the one that adjusts. This obviously this slides here, doesn't it? So you can slide it in and along to sort your adjustment out. So right, that's that bit out of the way, you see. So that one goes on one, and then that, by moving that, you can move it in and out. Right, so that's that bit. So there we are. So you see how that lines in, that's where the teeth go. They line up like that. You can adjust this again, you see, you can undo this one. So that can be moved through an arc. So effectively that arc decides on whereabouts on the cam wheel it would go, to line up, you see. So you can do that and then lock it in. So effectively that would lock into here. You see, you lock in there, and then you sort of lock into one there. That's the idea. And then it's got a cutout around here, which allows it to go over these lips when you've got a lip there. So it's a very nice little tool. So this is the locking kit I have, and you can see it does a couple of different versions. You've got the twin cam set up, which is what we were using. You also got a single cam set up, which can be used in different positions. It's useful. So you don't want to turn this over and check it now. So let's see what we got. It can be a bit awkward one-handed, but I'll do what I can. Right, so you see what I mean? It's going the opposite direction. It reverses the rotation, doesn't it, on the crankshaft. So the crankshaft's going clockwise, and the cam belts are going anti-clockwise. Well, you sort of knew that's going to happen because of the way where the tensioners are, but you get the idea. Right, so that's round on our cams. So you can see we've gone all the way around on the cams. Those are lined up again. See? Yeah. Okay. Let's look at our crank pulley. Yeah. So around there. We've got to move it a touch to line up, but we're not on these drop gears, are we? And there's a reason for that. And that will be to do with the ratio that they're set at. So we might have to do another rotation before that'll line up. Let's see what happens. So they've lined up there, but our cams aren't yet, are they? So let's keep going. So our cams are coming round now. There you go, they're lined up. There you go. And that puts them in line again, doesn't it? So obviously that's due to the ratio we got there. So let's have a look. So yeah, we're lined up on the crank. I mean, I know we're not perfectly lined up. I'll finesse that in a minute. Yeah, on our cams. On our cams. our drop gears. And on our crank. Let's just get this just that little bit right, okay? And then we should all be perfectly lined up on everything. A bit better on it. Yeah. They're all good. Take the tension up a bit. Not too bad though. Might just take that up a bit. But there we are. That's the theory anyway. You see, you get the idea. Okay, let's start it up and see what we got. Lovely, that'll be alright. I won't run it for long because we haven't got any water in it, but that'll be alright. Just to test it, it's fine, isn't it? Do you remember our drive shafts? And we had to split one of these, didn't we? So I've going to put new boots on here. So taking it all apart, cleaned everything up, and these are our constant velocity joints. These are the GKN style. Now they're a good size. They're quite nice size to put up with the power of these things. You find these on a lot of race cars. As I say, it's a GKN style joint. That's all cleaned up. I'll get it assembled now. Wedge them full of grease, obviously, first. Right, that's the drive shaft assembled again. There's all our bolts and nuts. And we'll get that back on the car.